We are the Educators Bookclub, and we talk casually about books we've been reading and the valuable ideas that they offer. Now, we've got audience participation later on, or even in the chat, actually, if you want to kind of ask a question or have a comment. And then we do have a guest author. I'm going to stop sharing for just a second. Our guest author wrote this book, which Connection Curriculum. Oh, you got a copy too. Oh,
ding, ding, ding.
So just to start us off, oh, look, I think I can see some people in the audience that have a copy as well, which is really good. So I'm going to start us off by sharing. This is a book that I have been reading or listening to. Now, just backtrack 1 month. So
wait, we've seen that before.
We have seen that before. So this author has teamed up with another person called Flower Darby, and she wrote a book about specifically, it was writing in on a lot of the ideas. And now I'm just going to stop sharing and share again because it's opened up in a different window. Okay. So you should be able to see that now. This is the Cloud Player in Audible. So this is called Small Teaching Online, Applying Learning Science in Online Classes. And so if I look at the chapters, there's all this, it's a huge amount of detail, and it's very structured. There's lots of theoretical insights and lots of principles. And then it's like, well, what does that look like? And quick tips, that type of thing. And so basically, I'll just click on that again. Backwards design is a thing, same with universal design for learning, but there's a whole heap of other kind of elements. I really enjoyed this book, by the way, and this is very close to what I teach at UTS, using media tools and technology, this idea that we are human, even though it's an online course, giving feedback, fostering student success, that sort of thing. So I might just stop sharing for just a second. You look like you've got a question, Lottie.
I just saw that there was a chapter saying the small teaching approach.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us, because, we have previously heard from both you and Stephen on the small teaching book, and there were mixed feedback, let's say, on
I think it all gets
the value of it.
The message and the audience, okay? When you're in the realm of higher education, the laws of physics that you're used to don't apply, because the people that are doing the teaching are generally PhD candidates or other people that are researchers. They're balancing their research with their teaching. And so they're not like school teachers that have gone and done all this training in how to teach, learning and teaching and pedagogy and all of that. And so with that in mind, this is really customized to that particular audience, a higher ed audience. And so people like your good selves, if you're seasoned school teachers, you would know a lot of this.
Well seasoned.
However, not all of it, because a lot of it is really straightforward and kind of, oh yeah, that makes sense. But some of it, because it's online and because it's technology and it's evolving and the rest of it, there's kind of like approaches maybe the classic is a discussion forum, okay? And so how would you if you were doing it face-to-face, you'd kind of have a pair share type of activity. How do you make that work online? So I guess one of the things that struck me, though, it is a really useful book. And if you're kind of new to teaching and you're new to online teaching, it's really valuable. However, in kind of this territory, a lot of universities and a lot of other organizations, the person that's delivering the course, the teacher, they don't make a lot of the decisions about setting up forums and kind of like building the course. That's done by teams of educational developers or learning designers. And so in a way, it's sort of like, oh, okay, it's assuming that the person that's teaching is going to be the one that makes all these decisions. So on that level, it's huge, it's like overwhelming. There's too many decisions to make. So I kind of think it's a good book to maybe have on your desk, and then you can pick it up and maybe incorporate a few little small teaching approaches. So it's very similar to the previous book in a way, little bits and pieces, little tips and tricks. You wouldn't read it from cover to cover and incorporate absolutely everything. And in my experience with well-designed courses, that some of which I have designed, but others that I haven't designed, but it was reassuring that there's kind of like best practice and, oh yeah, this is good, this is working, and this is why it works really well. So I think I might just share it again, just so we've got it in
How
our.
up to date is the technology referenced in it, Mark? Like, obviously, if you're saying how do you do peer share online, it's breakout rooms, but breakout rooms have only been around for
It didn't
so
even.
long.
Well, it
How
didn't.
does the
It didn't.
technology figure?
It didn't hitch its wagon on anything specific. It kind of had a suitably general, if you might try this, or the LMS. There was lots of phrasing of it's in the LMS and you'll have to investigate type thing, which I think is sensible. It's reasonable to have that because otherwise the book would date really fast. And I mean, it's only a few years old, and it didn't feel dated. It felt like it was really full of interesting, useful advice, really. Um, so, but it is fraught with, you know, context maybe determines a lot because in some setups for different learners, a lot of the advice wouldn't be relevant. But I guess it's knowing how do you determine that. So yeah. So I think it's definitely worth reading or listening to in audible format or audio format. Um, and then yeah, there's the bloke's previous book. He didn't write a lot of it. He wrote the beginning and the end, or the beginning intro, just to set in place, sort of remind us what the small teaching approach is. And the vast bulk of the book is actually what is that? How does that transfer online? So, um, so there you go. I'm going to stop sharing. Any further questions, Lottie and Stephen, or anyone else from in the audience? I don't know if people. It's like a bit of a post-COVID world we're living in now, so it's sort of like, oh well, we don't need to do that now, so we'll just go back to what we were doing before. But
I feel like you went into lecture mode. I was like,
oh no.
no, lecture as in when you're delivering your lectures, not to say you're droning on about things, but you know what I mean? Because I've listened to you teach many times before. You went into your, and the
My
patter, the rhythm.
intonation.
So the big question is, Stephen, are you going to read it?
Well, I thought the other one was
won't.
terrible, so I have to read
Yeah,
this one and make
exactly.
fun of it at next class, right?
Thus my question.
For the people that weren't here last time, it was a lot of, I tried talking to the students in my lecture, and I found it, frankly, quite good for their learning. Rather than, I talk to humans because that's what we do sometimes in between books, at least that's for me. Anyway.
This is new territory, though. I meant to mention in the background, this is the lovely library at the Western Sydney University Narimba campus. So I was there a few weeks ago and I took a photograph. I thought it was.
You realise you are setting a precedent of having different library backgrounds for
That's
each
all right.
month now,
I
Mark.
get around, I've got a few. Anyway, that's me done.
He's not a one library man. He shops around. That's what I've heard.
It's good that we're still getting people in our waiting room or, entering in the audience.
Excellent.
So, should we invite our guests up, or do you want to talk about a book first? One of you two.
If Matt's ready, you can pop on your camera. I've just messaged you, but maybe there we go. Hello, Matt.
There he is. Hang on a minute.
Welcome.
I'm gonna add a pin. Oh, hang on.
Oh,
What am I
No,
doing
I'll do it,
here?
Mark. Don't worry. Mark's dumbfounded by the concept.
more
If
teaching
I
online.
continue. Did that work? We've got 4 people. That's worked. Matt, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. I'm here.
Welcome. Welcome to our event. It's good to see you.
Thank you. I appreciate the invite. I'm just trying to make it so that I'm not just looking at myself constantly.
Yeah, because Mark's pressed the wrong button.
What is
I
this?
was trying to wait. Can anyone else back me up that in Zoom, PIN is for when you're like seeing if someone's awake or asleep in a meeting? Is that just me, or can someone else vouch for that? I was trying to explain to Mark
I
spotlight
hadn't
so
I
we
hadn't
can all
heard it
see
described
everyone.
like this, but
And
I
PIN
might
is
be
when you want
wrong.
to see, if you're like, what's in their background? Or you're saying, is that
Spotlight's
person
just
asleep?
one, though, isn't it? One person.
Oh, it's all mostly when you're in a really, really big, 100 people thing and you flick through and you're going, this is a bit boring, and then you got to go find someone who's particularly of interest. Questions like, is that person in bed? Are they asleep?
Oh,
I,
Have they forgotten? Are they picking their nose? Anyway, Matt, how are you doing?
hashtag Zoom live.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm excited to have a chat and be on the screen, I suppose. It's a bit different. I like Zoom Live. That's a good hashtag.
I mean, as someone who's also had a book, it's not often that you get to meet 3 people who've read it, let alone one. So
Yeah.
congratulations on both.
And
Firstly,
look,
on
there's
having the
even
book
people in the
and meeting
audience that have
people who
copies.
have
yeah,
read
they're
it
holding
or
up their
have the
copies. I can see them.
The
That's
fans,
great.
they're here. So
So,
good.
Matt, tell us where you've come from, or what's your background, and how did this book come about? What was there a perceived need to write this book? What was driving you?
Well, perceived need is interesting. I've been teaching for about 14 years, and I've been fortunate to be in leadership for all but a year and a half of that. So I've had lots of different roles and picked up lots of little experiences. And I think through some further study, I started to get frustrated with some of the school stuff that we get bogged down with. A
Like,
lot of logistics and the the assessment and the things that we tend to hang a big red bow on at what I felt was potentially the cost of the people, and the people are what makes schools go. That's the reason we're there. We're there to build the capacity of the future generation. And so as I completed some degrees, I just realized I had all these assignments and these big papers. And once you're done and you get your result, you kind of just file that away. And I thought, well, if I've got all this good research, perhaps I could do something with it. The idea for a book was completely random, and it was actually a completely different idea that I floated originally. And through a discussion with Alicia, this book appeared, and I decided to, I guess, head in a direction that is different to where a lot of the other books and things that I was seeing were heading. And I think, outside of, I focused on the people where it's all about management. And I thought, well, people is leadership. So I'd like to write a book about leading people rather than managing tools and resources, and bring it out of that participatory space and into that partnership space. Yeah.
so from what I remember, you have the background to your study and research was pretty much what's in the book. It's kind of like all these very human-centered activities. Can you talk us through, because there's teachers in the audience, what are you can you clarify maybe when they're kind of, what's possible if you're kind of not focusing on assessment and all these sort of other things that you mentioned? What is all that other stuff?
So I think the big focus of the book, and something that I'm really passionate about, is addressing the needs of young people and staff and parents, so everybody that's associated with schools, but addressing their need to be curious and their need to explore and play and grow. And that's not something that I think schools are doing particularly well at the moment. I think for a number of different reasons, whether they're admin related or assessment related or just because of the time pressures, we tend to default to kind of what Tracy Ezard and what Kirsten Ferguson, which is the book I've been rereading. Oh, hello.
Oh, I know that one.
It's the head work. And I think that the focus right now, when we're so disconnected as a people, with under the guise or the false kind of pretense of being connected through all the digital means, I think we need to focus on the heart work, and we need to focus on building empathetic people and people that are curious, not just about the world that they're stepping into, but the people that inhabit that world. And schools are the perfect environment to create that. You have a whole heap of young people who are just ready to absorb and learn real things, not just what might feature in a textbook. And I guess if you have a focus on connection, you really are going to see the benefits across the whole school. You're going to see, for all of the focus on behavior management, connection and creating a relationship and a sense of belonging and attaching meaning to learning will help with behavior management, because a lot of behavior is just because a student is unsettled or they're uncertain, or staff need to be managed sometimes, and they're leaving this profession in droves. So focusing on their needs, and I don't think there's many teachers who have joined teaching because they're not interested in learning themselves, but they don't have time. Outside of environments like this, which you opt into, this is a collection of people who want to learn, but you opt into it. We have to find these opportunities. But why aren't schools providing that? And I think, for parents, it's the same. Parents are the original teachers or guardians, carers, depending on the makeup of the family, and they're left outside the gate. So I think a focus on connection will address issues of retention. It certainly helps with refusal, violence, bullying, and there's just a ton of research that I think is either going missing, being overlooked, or just not having its time in the spotlight. And so that was why I decided to write the book and put it out there, and hopefully, I guess, plant the seed that within this system, which is quite rigid and quite resistant to change, we can still do a lot of great work on the people side while catering to the needs of running a school. Like, it's waiting for the system to change is just not going to work, and too many people are being impacted. So work within the structure we have now and create change that will have a lasting impact.
Lottie and Stephen, you got any questions for Matt? Or anyone else in the audience? Please put them in the chat. I'm interested to know what does this look like in a school if you were to, get the insights that are in this book and run with some of the ideas. What's a really typical kind of activity or approach or shift or something that you see, or that you recommend, or that is kind of in this sort of territory, just to kind of, even like a small change?
So I think what it looks like is a community of people that are happy to be there. And I'm very fortunate to work in a school community at the moment where we cater almost exclusively to young people who are from backgrounds where they haven't had a great time at school. quite a lot of them have had multiple years where they haven't attended, and now they love coming to our little spot and connecting with their learning. I think the way you do that is you create a space that is based around interest, and you show interest by, I mean, so across the three groups of people, you show interest and you build interest in your parent body by allowing them to be an active contributor rather than just a recipient of whatever information, you think they might like to know. You welcome them in outside of the parent information nights, and you collect data from the parents about what they'd like to see. And you'll have to filter through quite a lot of stuff. And some of it will probably not be very relevant at all. But just giving them the opportunity makes a difference. And that's where you start to build those connections. For staff, it's actually much the same. My suggestion would be just to allow voice and give people permission to take part.
Well,
instead of having somebody run, your typical staff meeting and have the slides and all of, why not just have a provocation and ask staff to address it? Collate your ideas, let people speak. You can do that with parents, and you can certainly do that with students. Leadership teams have students on them, have parents contribute to them. Outside of some of the requirements of running a school, why can't everyone have a say in how it works?
So Malika in our audience has pretty much in agreement by the sounds of it. Malika, do you have any thoughts you want to vocalize or a question to ask or a comment?
Sorry, I was trying to get my camera on. I think just listening to Matt talking, it's been pretty affirming for, as I said, some things that we're doing. We've started inviting our parents and carers in once a term, not for information sessions, but for really hands-on interactive workshops where they're actually getting to experience what their children experience every day. We're trying to give them that information, and it just was never really being understood that well. So we thought, well, let's bring them in and let's actually run them through some protocols, and let's show them what inquiry looks like, and let's really unpack what they're interested in. And now, following our workshops, they get to nominate the focus of the next one. The feedback's been overwhelmingly positive. And it's hard work, but it's pretty motivating. And I think same thing from a staff wellbeing perspective, just having really flexible agendas where it's not always the same person sharing the provocations and sharing that connection activity, and just empowering others to share their expertise. So just listening to Matt, I'm making a lot of connections and kind of, as our prep teachers say, air ticking some of the really good things that we're doing. So pretty proud.
Very good.
What's air picking for those playing along at home?
Air ticking.
Air ticking. Gotcha. Okay. Right.
The new strategy, Stephen, for you.
Did we have prep? Did we have recess? Sorry. Air tick.
Okay.
Have we done phonics? Air tick.
I like it. It might even work with online teaching.
It does. It's working now. See, there's some ticks. Thank you, Malika. Rachel or Steve, do you want to have a comment or a question for Matt? Oh, we've got your comments
Steve,
in the comments. Say that again, Steve.
As one, Steve, I'll jump in.
Can you hear me all right? Or which Steve are we talking about here?
Oh, Steve Trotter.
The handsome one. Go ahead.
There he is.
Well, you were saying before you're going to pin someone to see if they were in their bed, and that's me exactly right at the moment in doing this. So just relaxing into this. Look, Matt's book came probably about nearly a decade too late for me, but in a way, because I walked into a school as a principal, very young green principal, and we'd lost about 40% of our enrolments purely because of some pretty significant challenges with leadership, and a principal had been moved on from the school. And there's a number of things through here, but one of the first things that I got some advice was, you're going to do some of your best work at the front gate. And that was because we had so many families not even stepping foot into the school because they didn't feel welcome. They didn't feel connected to the learning, which was important. And, we had a school council meeting, and I know, I think it's one of your chapters in here about connections more than a sausage sizzle. And that was the first thing we were talking about. And they're like, let's have a sausage sizzle. And we did it, and no surprise, the same people turned up that turn up every day. But we didn't actually connect or engage with the families that we really needed to get in our school and start to support the learning. So there was some really, really big fundamental changes. And, in a way, this reinforces the work that I had to do a lot of trial and error and fail, and a bit of egg on the face, and a few abusive phone calls, and some please leave us alones, to sort of get to the point where we'd sort of worked out a bit of a formula to start to get families in around supporting their kids with their learning and wellbeing, not simply to just step foot on site and smile and move on. So, that was years of work. And, reading through Matt's book, there's so many connections through there that I've gone, that was an amazing learning journey for me. And I know there will be a lot of people that are, particularly in this current climate, that are walking into spaces that are very similar. So, I think from a school leader's perspective, an absolutely invaluable resource for teachers, but from my perspective, young green leaders walking into schools to lead communities that may not be engaged in the real work that we're doing in school, which is people.
Very good. You've got to be happy with that, Matt. That's a very
very good
it
review.
resonates
Put that on
strongly.
the back of the book. That's good. Well, I feel like, Matt, we got to throw to you to transition in and out of our
Thank you, Steve.
book chat. What have you been reading? You flashed it up before.
Oh, I know what he's been reading. I've got it in. I'm going to share my screen.
All right.
Oh,
Talk us through
here.
it, Matt, and then we'll
Talk us through it, Matt.
Love a share.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I've been reading or rereading Head and Heart, and I think for me, like a lot of the start of when I was writing my book, I was thinking about this one and the work in it, and separating, the head work from the heart work. And in my mind, it's, all of your thinking processes and all of the hard work that leaders have to do is grounded in that head work. And where the difficulty comes from is focusing on, you can lead processes and you can manage resources and you can certainly build buildings and create space, but you have to fill those rooms with people, and that's where the heart work comes into play. And for me, this book's just really reaffirming of that, that focus and that need to connect with the people and make sure that, you need to run a school that caters to people. And, this book is all about just leadership in general, but I think in the current state of schooling, it's certainly invaluable for leaders to go and have a read. And really focusing on, or find that balance. And the balance doesn't always necessarily need to be 50-50. It is based on your contextual needs. And I think certainly lots of schools could increase their percentage, on working on the empathetic side and that human focused side.
So what are some of the obstacles in this kind of territory? Why don't they?
Well, it's the normal barriers to creating any kind of change in a business. I think or an organization, you have to jump the hurdles and you have to motivate the troops. It's you can focus in on your people, but to some degree, a change needs people to reflect back and commit. And I think, you know, that's where the head and the heart is a great way to think about leadership, because you need to convince with data and with process and with structure. And you need, and that's that kind of safety net that we have that allows us to anchor ourselves in that change. And then you lead by finding the strengths in your people and to some degree exploiting them, because you push people.
The strengths, not the people, right, Matt?
Yeah, no, that's right. But I mean, that's how you create a situation where they grow. You have to pull on those threads a little bit and motivate and push people to do a little bit more than what they're doing. And then eventually that's how you build a culture. You build a culture, you know, with the heart work around the head work. And so I just really like the way it kind of breaks up leadership into two really simple categories and, you know, weighs them against each other. So that's always a win, that book. I love it.
Gotcha. And then Matt, you've got a post for us in the chat, your book launch that's coming soon for the Melbourne people.
And everyone also needs to post their top recommendations on books on leadership. Matt, quick question. Have you read The Power of Giving Away Power by Matthew Barzin on the constellation mindset?
No, I haven't.
I feel like it's everything you're talking about. He was an aide to Obama, and he did a lot of diplomatic work, but he talks about you know, constellations there's always all these different stars in the skies, but you know, when we walk into a situation, a different constellation will be drawn depending on who's involved in that, and so we all have those opportunities to be leaders. And he talks about power not being finite, it just being the power of giving away power. It's a fantastic read if anyone in the audience wants to explore.
So we're going to move on with our little show. We've got 25 minutes left. Any final thoughts, Matt? Please hang around.
Oh, I'm here until the end. Don't you worry, Mark.
We're gonna hear.
Any final thoughts is very open-ended, though.
Oh yeah, well, you know, don't make me look at the last page of your book. The journey is messy. No, hang on.
That's
journey is messy.
I'm happy to talk on that quickly. I think one of the reasons why change is really difficult it's really difficult to maintain the momentum is because we'd like it to be really clean and smooth sailing, and meaningful change is not. And that's why at the end of the book, or towards the end, that's that little section that's sort of, I hope, reassures readers that it is supposed to be really messy. And not everything, you know, if you've got a school of, I mean, it could be a school of 150 people, like, but that's still 150 different people and different perspectives, and there will be enough of a percentage in there to try and stop things or ground things to a halt. And it's just about what works for your school is not going to work for the school down the road. And so you really have to embrace the messiness, and in doing so, really look at what are the qualities of your school that will help you get to where you want to be. Because you can build or you can fill in the gaps, but you really need to lead from what are you working with now? And even if the school's had a horrible history, you know, of whatever it might be, there's still some green shoots to grab onto there. So yeah, the journey is messy, but it's definitely worth it. If it was really simple and easy, then, you know, we'd be already doing it, or we'd be ignoring it. You know, the interest comes in the learning and the growth.
Very good. I think I was desperately trying to share this page here. It's kind of, oh no, that's not going to work.
The invisible page.
The model.
That one there, because it reminds me of Stephen Colbert's Mirrors in the Background. And it's all about the focus areas of voice, identity, creativity, purpose, empathic curiosity, permission. But yes, Stephen's background was echoing the model, the schema.
Mark's doing a live reading for us.
Yes, that's right.
No
Like
need to
live
read it.
poetry reading. I think. Thank you, Matt. We're going to move on, and we'll hear from you again soon.
Well, that was
Don't go
good.
anywhere.
Getting to do that. Anyway, sorry.
Okay.
It just became a rainbow and then we went away. I was too
Who-
slow. Also, this is what I'm reading leadership-wise.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know why that came into the house, but it was here.
What
And
is it? Ferocious something.
Ferocious
Tracy Izzard's book.
warmth.
Warmth.
Yeah. Yeah, similar to the head and the heart, kind of. There you go.
Ooh.
It's much more dog-eared and has probably been weed on by a baby. Actually, it has been weed on by a baby.
Hey.
That's how you know it's good. And then I've been reading it whilst
Fair
actively.
amount of magenta on the screen then with the Lottie's jumper and the 2 books. So who's going to tell us what you've been reading? And have you got a screen to share?
Oh, screen to
Don't
share.
all rush at
No,
once.
you're
I want to
right.
hear from some of the audience members as well, if we
Yes,
have a little
prep
bit of time at the end.
I've been a bit of a slacker this past month. I've been on holidays and yeah, just had a bit going on. So I did a lot of non-education reading, but the book I read was the main book I sort of just read was a bit light. I'm just going to share my screen. It's called
Well,
Hard
as we
Knocks.
discussed last month, you do need those lighter options sometimes. Hard
We all
knocks.
need
Oh, it's a
them.
bit light. Oh, hard knocks. Yeah.
All about traumatic secondary school experiences. So, you
Just
know,
a bit of light reading, hey?
it felt like it was light because 2 reasons. It was quite big print, which we always love. And I always love a bit of big print, makes it feel like it's an easy read. But it also is just little 3 or 4 pages per famous Australian person about their time in school. People like Benjamin Law, Penny Wong, Adam Goods, Missy Higgins, and, you know, spoiler, they all had a pretty hard time at secondary school for, you know, reasons linked to identity, diversity, sexuality. People like Hazim Al-Masri had come from Lebanon, so, you know, refugee backgrounds. And it really was just sort of a bit of a reflection. I think there's a lot of conversations going on at the moment in schools around, you know, well-being. And, you know, it was just interesting thinking about how different schools are now. And just, I mean, I don't know what people, you know, I'd love to hear, Stephen and Mark, what your high school experiences were like, you know, for you. But, you know, you know, these kids were just left. These people were just left to survive in these schoolyards. And every now and then they had a champion, an educator that kind of really stood up for them. And they remember it. But they do talk about having, you know, a lot of challenge in their secondary schooling and all quite diverse experiences. So, you know, a bit of a flick through, not light as in content, but just light as in accessibility. But yeah, that's what I read this month. Post-its and all.
And who was your favourite? Who wrote the best bit?
Oh, it's no favourites. Maybe I quite enjoyed reading Benjamin Law's.
That's what
Mainly
I was
because
going to say. He's the best.
I met him at a literary festival in Beijing when I was teaching there, and just that personal connection. But he actually didn't have that hard a time because although, you know, he had challenges around his own identity and just expressing that, he was quite popular. So that was really interesting for him as well. Just hearing about, for a lot of the others, it was hard, but for him, it was like, actually, people loved me and I was quite funny and, you know, popular. But it sort of was a bit of a mask. So yeah, it was sort of nice to read something that was somewhat positive.
Mm.
That was one of my favourite teaching moments. We used to teach growing up Asian in Australia, and his chapter would invariably leave the quiet EAL students in the back of their seat going, whoa, this is not, you know, this is not where we grew up. Always good fun. I want to read it. That sounds like fun.
Yeah. Good read. What about you, Stephen? You've got the usual.
Yes, bring it on. Let's hear it. Hear all about them.
The heavy title, Pedagogy of the Oppressed.
Yeah, well, you know.
The Bree Lee series, yes.
I can't remember who it was, so someone will have to remind me in the chat. Whoever said, I think I can't remember who said it, but Who Gets to Be Smart? I was like, all right, I'll go back in and finish it. And then I had to read the work because
was it worth
Lisa said
reading,
the work
that
was
one?
good.
Was it
Hey?
worth reading?
No. There you go, Milica. Gotcha. Yeah, no, it's like,
Yeah, no.
okay. My reflection is, in every book of that kind, that's kind of your classic non-fiction by a person who's in the story, if I was an editor, I would take out all the bits that were just like the personal story, and I'd look at them all side by side, and I'd say, does this make me sound like a nice person or not? And I think that for this particular author, and I've been reflecting deeply on it, I think that's where it falls down. So it's like, Who Gets to Be Smart? Sure, yep. They're all, it's like the non-fiction bits are like, yeah, this is great. It's a little bit internet researchy. And then it'll be like, anyway, I was driving my car and I ran over a possum and then it didn't die, so I backed over it 4 or 5 times. And you're just kind of like,
Said every New Zealander.
well, you know, and there was a lot of that, like, you know, and it's normal and I had to put it out of its misery. But it's also just like, if I said to you, we're going to write a autobiography, you'd probably not pick out that scene to be like, this is really going to make people, you know,
Who I am.
be on my side. And there was just a whole bunch of things like that. I think Who Gets to Be Smart, it was like a COVID thing. And it made me realize just how hard it is to do this kind of genre where you know, you're like, I went on an adventure and then I learned something and now I'm a better person at the end. And it was like, oh, she didn't go anywhere. And I presume that's a COVID thing. But it was just like, oh.
What do you mean it was a COVID thing? You mean like she was stuck at home and so she wrote a book?
Yeah, it was kind of like I've Googled these things and now here are my reflections. The kind of the central scene of the book was like right at the start, the Rhodes Scholarship, and she's like, I love the buildings. The buildings are the best. Oh, they're amazing. And then she's like, anyway, I Googled it, and then Rhodes was a massive racist, and he's, you know, a truly reprehensible person. And then she was like, anyway, about the buildings again. And you just sort of get a sense of like, you have not really engaged with what you're talking about in any real way other than to kind of, you know, go, anyway, the internet said he was a big asshole and, you know, he's not a good person. But anyway, the buildings were amazing and I would have loved to have got a Rhodes Scholarship myself. But also, as Alicia said, Alicia, I don't know why I pronounced that weird, the work was real good. So she can write real good. It's kind of like, you know, you think of your top student that you've taught in a class, like they can write really well, but they might not necessarily have the kind of, you know, the broad understanding of the world that you might require to sort of, you know, you're writing books and those sorts of things. And Beauty was a lot about her self, you know, her self-image and got quite yuck, if you can imagine how that works. But if you're a very skinny white woman, there might be some ways that happens that aren't very pleasant. And so overall, and I'm about halfway through Eggshell Skull, but my wife convinced me that I should abandon it because similar, lots of very sensitive issues that I was like, yeah, I don't really want to be listening to this on my drive into school, so to speak. So anyway, I did a deep dive on Bree Lee, and you know, if me and Alicia ever catch up sometime, we can go into detail about, you know, my personality. I did reflect for ages, like maybe I'm just a big chauvinist and it's because she's a female or something. But I just found the book unlikable and yuck. But anyway,
well, let's shift into something that you did enjoy.
What about a lighter read like Pedagogy of the Oppressed? Which I just have to say, I read it like 20 years ago. So I pulled out my copy like 10 minutes before we opened the Zoom. And I was like, I still don't understand half of
no, well, I won't say much
these
about
words.
it.
So what's it about?
I think my little Goodreads review was like, okay, I've read it. Do I get a star now from
do I get
society?
a medal?
You know, it was like, I don't know. Yeah, I couldn't honestly tell you. If someone held a gun to my head and said, explain what this was about, I'd be like, I'm not really sure. But, you know, I feel like I've achieved something by...
What's in that other tab? You've got another tab lined up that's related to the book.
This was the other one I read.
So that's it. You're not going to tell us any more about This one.
Well, you did ask him about the tab marks.
I know. I just I saw pedagogy and thought it was linked to the same book. But
yes, right. I did tab the other Bree books, but I did that because
no, we don't need to go there.
Okay, Pedagogy of the Oppressed is all about, Mark, this amazing thing where you say, I'm from wherever he's from, Brazil, and this is my approach. But then you spend the whole time talking about like them and they and that. And so that everyone reading it goes like, yeah, my, high SES middle class school, I am teaching the oppressed. And then, but then at the end, unfortunately, someone from the modern time says, Paulo Freire would be truly horrified with what happened to his theory, because it's basically that, he's like, I went into the slums where there were illiterate people and I taught them to have a voice in the world. And then everyone's like, just like me at my university, where everyone pays thousands of dollars, I teach them. And yeah.
Well, so, I'm going to listen to it or read it now, because I've had it in my list for a while.
You have to, if Lottie and I have sat through it, you have to do the same.
Is it comparable to Umberto Eco, as Rebecca has said in the chat? Would you compare?
What that is, Rebecca? What is it?
Yeah. It's just, part of the canon.
Oh, Umberto Eco. Oh my God. Like, I think it was in the name of the rose or something. Oh my God.
What do you mean? Oh my God. Like brilliant or terrible?
Oh, like I was reading it for a book group and I just like, it was a hard slog. Like,
oh, really? I loved it.
But it's one of those books that really impresses people. You're just like, oh, I've read
it.
Yeah. And you just get risen to a level that most people only aspire to. And I have to say, I just hated it. But I knew that it was a bit like when I did Oxfam. Like, I hated it doing it, but it was just one of those things where you just go, yeah, I did it. And people go, oh, it's great.
Medal for you.
Gold star. Yes.
The intellectual Kokoda Trail. That's a list we need to have happening. What are the books that you gritted your teeth through and then went, I will have my plaudits now.
Yeah, seriously. Like, I just brag about it all the time. Like, it's just, it's like you have to, because what else do you get from it?
Looks like your friendship with Milika's over. No. Okay.
So what have you been
Sorry,
reading?
I shouldn't speak on behalf of Milika.
Rebecca, what have you been reading now that you're up on the stage? Got something off the top of your head? Oh, what's that?
Why has no one told me this before? It's a big self-help book.
And what's it about? Like, what's this?
Basically just a lot of stuff that's come out of like people doing therapy about dealing with emotions and it's really good. And without going through a lot at the moment, and it's just been really nice and helpful. It's like, so, and it's one of those books where you sort of say to people, oh, I'm reading this, you're going, oh, I just bought it too, and you're like, I didn't realize that we're all buying it.
Big W must have a sale or something.
Is it something you would recommend teachers in general read? Do you feel like it's relevant? Or
into well-being, like, and that's sort of probably also from my coaching role, is just when you're working with people and sort of dealing with emotions and sort of trying to get them to name and
articulate,
like actually put a word to that emotion, because as they were talking about in the book, that we don't often as a society we get told not to feel our feelings, and you push them down and you don't name them. And so so she sort of just gives some advice, and the chapters are really short and sharp, and things like, emotions aren't facts. They're simply a perception of what's going on at a particular point in time, and that you just sort of, you name it, you accept it, you sit with it, and it will pass through, and it doesn't define you. So lots of good advice. If you're after a self-help book, it's great.
And this too shall pass.
Yes. And then I also listened to a great thing, because I'm total US political junkie, and Donald Trump, as much as I despise him, like, I get my popcorn out and just sit there and watch and just go, thank God he's not my leader. But The Authoritarian Nightmare, it explains it's all about the psychology of the Trump supporter. It's gold.
Is that the name of the book?
Yep, Authoritarian Nightmare.
You must be having a great time at the moment with everything going on in the US.
Oh, it is the best year. Seriously. I mean, awesome. And just watching him melt down at the moment is just like, pass me the popcorn.
This one?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
It is awesome. Like, and it goes into all the psychological tests and stuff, and about it is just phenomenal. Yeah. It makes a lot of sense, because I always be saying, I don't understand. My husband's like, can you just stop trying to understand people? You're just never going to understand them. But this makes sense. You're like, oh. And then I now start diagnosing people.
Which authoritarian figure are you?
The local dictators.
I'm like, I realize that
that was not a question to you.
Oh, no. It's like, it reaffirms sort of where your political beliefs are. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, I am that. That's fine. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah.
Okay, I reckon, thank you, Rebecca. I reckon we might remove the spotlight, remove your pin.
Don't worry, Mark, I did it. Don't do it. You'll stuff it up.
Stephen has one more book to share. You were in the pedagogy, other pedagogy.
Oh, yeah.
No, activism. Teachers.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, okay.
Leaders. Something.
Yeah.
There it is.
We don't want to hear more of me. I'll talk too much. He basically followed around 4 teachers and talked about their activism. It's potentially PhD related for me down the track, maybe. But what I realized is just how boring activism is. It's basically just a lot of meetings, which, I love meetings as much as the next person. So it'd be like, one of these four teachers that, as the kids run into the class, they get a high five or a custom handshake, and then she or he or they is running around delivering things, and it's exciting, and it's this and it's that. And then it's like the next section is like, and here's the union meeting that they ran. And it's like, oh, this is not quite as high energy. It's a bit, boring, essentially. And so at that point, I was like, I don't think I want to read about activism.
Where were these teachers from? Which part of the world, or was it Australia? Or?
Oh, no, they're all US based. So it's a lot of that kind of, everything has a really long acronym and it's complicated and, those sort of things. But it was better than the other pedagogy of book that I read, which isn't saying much.
It's not hard.
No, it was a good book, but activism is a bit dull. Who else wants to talk to us?
Tell us,
I put the request out, but no, there's no one's going to bite. We've got 5 small minutes left.
I feel like Alicia has to defend the Brie Lee books that she made me read.
I just also want to say we have Celia here, and Celia kindly dropped this on my doorstep because we both discovered we live in Phillip Island, which was really random. So thank you, Celia. I've just started it. Oh, matching.
God, now I'm nervous. Now I'm nervous. I do have something I have been reading, but it's very light. If you want something very light, and it's got nothing to do
nothing's excluded.
Nothing to do with schools, teachers, or education.
What is it?
Perfect, go.
Well, I'll tell you why, because whether you like him or not, I'm a big biography reader. I love them. And it's called Open by Andre Agassi. Has anybody come across this?
No.
It is, right. It's, whether you like Andre Agassi or not, whether you like tennis or not, it's fabulous, right? He, talks a lot about, obviously, his life. What I really like is a lot of the book is about, the highs and the lows, dreams and the goals, all that stuff that everybody talks about. But it was when he started surrounding himself with the right people that he started making the right choices. And so in my line of work, I'm no longer in a classroom. I work at university with pre-service teachers. We talk a lot about their own well-being and some, and making the right choices in the, as they enter into schools, on their placements, so forth, and networking, and, surrounding themselves with the right people that can support them the same way, not obviously at this level, but in the same way. So this was just a really good way of, sometimes at uni in our ITE courses, just breaking the ice a little bit without not always being so theory based as well. Yeah, and just bringing in some different perspectives. So no, it was nothing to do with education. I was on holiday, so it was an easy book to read while you're
Is Andre Agassi the guy who went bald and then wore a wig on the court?
He did. I think he did wear a wig on the court.
He was surrounded by the wrong people, though. It wasn't his fault. He had a stylist.
I was reading this. I was reading them together. So
the only reason I asked that is because somebody in my company is also bald, and I'm sure he read that book or another book, and he actually basically wrote a book about embracing your baldness as a man. I don't think it did particularly well.
He is bald. I'm not sure, but there is something about a wig. I think you're right.
I love that Lottie's just randomly shaming the tennis star in today's.
Very stressful. He had this wig that was like glued to his head, and he was playing like high level tennis and like thinking about whether his wig was going to fall off.
That's just the.
I don't know. I'm going to look that up.
Yeah, let me know. Maybe it's another old tennis player.
Maybe. We've got the love affairs running through the chat, which is important too. Rachel, I feel like you've got books shuffling around up there. Do you want to share with us, or?
Sure. Thanks, Steve. I was just thinking about research methodologies and was reading the ethical conduct and research with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and communities. And that sort of led me into, I'm really lucky to be a fellow with the apiary this year, and we've been doing a lot of work around systems change and what that might look like for vulnerable children. I guess my focus typically is always in and around early childhood development, and I started reading over the weekend Journey into Dreamtime by Manya Andrews, and really I didn't get very far because I then went off on a tangent about what does it mean to have dreaming, and what does my dreaming teach me, and that, just pondering that, took me to the poetry of Ruby Moonlight. There's a couple of poems in there about dreams, which I typically don't read a whole book, but I find that things sort of come together for me. And then I was reflecting on, I'm just back from South Australia with the apiary, and we were really lucky to listen to some elders there who were part of the convening, and they were talking about the interconnectedness of all things. And one elder, Uncle Ivan, was talking about the importance of trees and the ways in which they're interconnected and what they mean most profoundly for him and his kinship systems. So then I started dipping into the heartbeat of trees. So I'm a little bit eclectic.
Sounds like these are all resonating with you. All these kind of, you're off on a tangent.
I guess I just sort of follow. I know before Matt was talking about connection and that notion of just what does it mean to be human. And I think because I work in early childhood, typically what it means to be human for me is to play and explore and follow my interests and be curious and dive a little deeper. And what is that about? And sometimes it brings me back full circle, I suppose. And other times it would just take me off, and suddenly I'm listening to Tyson Yunkaporta in the car about, you know, something or other that's connected into, yeah, just where that interest is taking me. So that, I mean, I'm happy to talk about all these books, but I appreciate we're already over time. But I am going to finish reading the Journey into Dreamtime, because there's something about that. But I think I will spiral out and come back to it, and then, yeah, spiral out. Yeah.
Sounds great. You can join us next month and tell us all about it.
Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
the spiral ended up. Yeah, maybe spiral's the wrong way.
Okay, I'm going to remove your pin.
Don't do it, Mark. You'll stuff it up somewhere.
Okay, that's us. We've reached the hour. We're still here. So I think that was jolly good. That was really quite enlightening.
You always sound very surprised.
Oh, you know,
that
these
went
things can
well.
go any.
We start with, oh, there's other people here.
There's
and then
other
we end
people
with,
here.
oh, that was okay.
And
That's
then,
with-
that was
I
good.
liked the very balanced voice across the hour. You know, lots of different perspectives happening. So thanks again, Matt, for joining us. I think, you know, nice to hear about, you know, more detail about your book. There's Alicia giving us a bit of an applause. Thank you.
I had lots more questions about your book, Matt, but Peter's invited me to come up to the school, so hopefully I'll get to meet you and do a school visit at some point soon. I just want to say I haven't been rude if I've been looking off camera. I've been adding books to Wakelet. I have been on task, despite your pinning technique, Stephen. So the Wakelet link is in the chat, and if I've missed any books, DM me and I'll add it in, or you can add it in.
And I'd just like to say, if I was looking off screen, it was because I was distracted and probably just on my phone.
Very good. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thanks again, Lottie and Stephen. And we'll see you next month with a whole heap of new books.
Yes. Happy
Bye.
reading, everyone.
Okay. Thank you. See ya.